Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you guys are having a great Thursday. So we have a lot to cover today. We're going to cover Iris Energy, Riot, and Marathon for their production updates in July. We also had Hive providers, TerraWolf, and Stronghold. We'll do those tomorrow. Otherwise, the video was going to be like 60 minutes long, and I don't want to go through all that. I don't want to have you guys sit here for that long either. So we'll split it up a little bit as always, and then we'll also take a look at the Bitcoin miners, see how they did today along with Bitcoin. Bitcoin was up just slightly today. Markets were actually down today. We'll cover that at the end of the videos. With this new format that we're doing here, we'll get into the news first, and we'll see what happens, okay? But as always, you guys know the drill here, not financial advice for entertainment only. Please do your own research. I'm investing in following coins and companies for full disclosure. And if you enjoy this type of content, I would appreciate if you guys hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out tremendously. And let's get into the news stories. But first, I wanted to send a quick shout out to Bryce McNally at McNally Money. He's another YouTuber that talks about Bitcoin miners. He has some great interviews with the CEOs of the Bitcoin miners as well. Those are worth watching for sure. And he interviewed me on Saturday of this past week, and he just uploaded it, the video today. If you guys could take a look at it, it's kind of interesting, some of the topics that we talked about there, but it's great nonetheless. So just wanted to give a quick shout out. Let's get into our first story here, which is going to be on Iris Energy. So Iris Energy announces monthly investor update for July 2023. And here's what we have as far as the details are on it. This is going to be pretty quick. One thing I don't like about Iris is they provide the average hash rate per their operations. I wish they would provide the actual operation, the hash rate that they have installed, running, not the operations, because that way I could at least see if they're curtailing a little bit. With them providing the average, I can't tell if they're curtailing, and I have to sometimes even add in extra dollars to make it work for my numbers. Okay, I'll point that out to you guys in the spreadsheet here in a little bit. But here's the average operating hash rate, 5,562 petahash, which is basically 5.56 exahash. Bitcoin mined was 423, so a good month for Bitcoin mining there. And here's some key takeaways from what they've provided here. Record data center operations at 111 degrees Fahrenheit, 44 degrees Celsius intake temperatures. It was a hot, obviously, a month in July. We had a heat wave go through the United States. And, well, in Texas, especially in places other, just a little bit north of that. So they were able to maintain stable hash rate through extreme temperatures, demonstrates Iris Energy's industry-leading data centers, and further validates proprietary air-cooled data center design. At those temperatures, personally, I probably would have just shut those off for at least the peaks, the high, at noon probably to like maybe 4 o'clock. I would have shut those off, let the miners have a little bit of a breather, because it is very taxing on the miners when that does happen. I would have liked to have known what the actual inside temperature was when they were mining on those, or what the internals were of those miners, because I'm guessing those were pretty hot. When I was managing a mining farm, whenever we got close to like 95 or something like that, we would actually shut down just to let the miners breathe and rest a little bit before we plugged them back in. Towards later in the day, when the sun was actually starting to come down a little bit and the heat was kind of starting to drop a little bit. Okay, that's just my take on that. And operations for the month, average operating hash rate, we talked about that. Also, the monthly operating revenue was 12.7 million. I think I have it at 12.7 million, 25, something like that. 423 Bitcoin mines. And then here's also kind of interesting. Higher electricity cost per Bitcoin was at 15.5 thousand versus the 13,000 in June. This was primarily attributable to higher prices at Childress during the month, typically higher during summer months, and reduced market volatility, lower energy trading proceeds. The company retains flexibility to reduce further power costs through adjusting miner output in response to changes in miner economics. So that's good there, but obviously they're paying a lot more for it. And as we'll look at Riot and Marathon also, Marathon curtailed a little bit here, but Riot definitely curtailed quite a bit. So it's a little surprising there with the numbers. We'll take a look at those here in a second, but let's get into the spreadsheet that I do have for them, and there's not much else going on here. They appointed a Sunita Parasuraman to board of directors. Okay, and that's about it. He has experience with Meta, VMware, Genentech, and Apple. So definitely some good experience there. Okay, let's take a look at the numbers that we do have for Iris, and we'll go through this kind of quickly here. So shares outstanding is about 54.9 million. Stock price is at $5.73. Market cap 315 million. As we look at their 12-week performance here, they've been up quite nicely here from 12 weeks, up 76%, 8 weeks even better, 79%, 4 weeks are down 2.2% from there, and they're down from last week. Last week they were down 3.55%. Okay, current hash rate as they reported, which is their average. Unfortunately, I wish they would provide the actual hash rate installed, which they might be at the 5.7 exahash that we're seeing here. They don't hodl anything. They sell pretty much everything that they mine. And then we can see here their production here is down a little bit from June at 423 from 428. May obviously had the network transaction fees in there as well. That helped a lot of the miners out. So it is down a little bit just slightly from June. Okay. Here you can see the monthly difference as far as how much they mined month-to-month difference on it. BTC hodl obviously 0. BTC per exahash, very efficient here, 75.71 based on the average. If I actually had the actual numbers, this probably would have been a little bit lower than that. And you can see the BTC number of sold. Hash rate has been pretty much stuck at above 5.5. They just went up a little bit here in June to 5.587. And they've been stuck there for the last 2 months now. Bitcoin mining revenue was at 12.726 million that I calculated. They said 12.7. So we're pretty close to that as well. Hash rate difference, obviously not much installed here in the last month. And let's see here, what else do we have here? Bitcoin sold, pretty much the opposite of what they mined. They pretty much sold everything. Last 4 quarters, you guys can take a look at those metrics here. And we do have, I forgot to add this in here. So I will add this in here. I've been going through a lot of these, obviously 6 updates to all the miners that provided their numbers today. So I did forget this one. I will try to get this in later on today. And we'll see how that goes. So that will be updated for the Patreon members by the time I upload this. Okay, but based on that, here's what I'm talking about as far as having to add actual dollars to their operations, because based on with their average hash rate, I have it running basically at the full 30 days here in July. And I had to add another $623,000 into it for it to make sense to get to the 12,725,000 roughly of revenue into it. So had they provided the actual exahash that they have installed, that number might be at the 5.7 exahash, might be a little bit higher, don't know. But this is why I have to add in actual dollar amounts to make it work. I don't have to do this for any other miners except for them. Okay, so that's that on that one as far as how we're looking at things right now. So if we're looking at the current quarter that we're in and the last 3 quarters, which the prior quarter Q2 is an estimate right now until we get the results from them. And then the prior 2 quarters to that, so that would be what is that going to be? Q4 and Q1, I believe, or Q4 and Q3. I can't remember, there's too many quarters involved in here. But somewhere around there, those 2 are actual numbers for them. And we're looking at a total combined income of $97 million for that. And if we're looking at P of 15, we're looking at a stock price of $13.27 and 75% net income. We're looking at P of 15 also at $19. They're at $5.73. Definitely way undervalued right now from where I think they should be. If we look forward, so if we take the current month of July numbers and multiply that times the number of months we have left until the halving event, which is like around 8, and then we basically half the revenue after the halving and multiply that by the remainder 4 months or something like that, we get 127 million in revenue, 50% net income, P of 15, we're looking at $17.36, and 75% net income, P of 15, we're looking at $26.04. So if you're forward looking, this is kind of where they probably should be. And it looks like the analysts here, at least from last month in June, for June numbers, they were $13 for the high and $7 for the low. So that was kind of in line with, well, it was actually lower than what I have them at. Okay, but definitely I believe that they are undervalued. They should be valued a little bit higher than that. The reason could be because they don't have a hodl position going into the halving event. That could be a reason why. Other than that, we'll have to wait until we get to see their quarterly numbers. Possibly they report their numbers every 6 months biannually. So it's a little tough to look at those. We'll see what we get from them. But we'll see, okay? But other than that, I think they're undervalued. But we'll have to take a look at their financials as well to see if that actually makes sense, okay? So that's it for Iris Energy. Let's take a look at our next one, which is going to be, I believe, on Riot. So Riot announces July 2023 production update and operational updates. And this is kind of, it's a little disappointing here. So Bitcoin produced was 410 compared to 460 in June. They did increase their hodl a little bit here to 7,275. They added basically 10 more BTC into it. They sold 400 Bitcoin right there. Their deployed hash rate is still 10.7 exahash. And then power credits, they actually got less for the power credits at 6.4 million compared to 8.4 million there. And demand response credits, they got 1.8 million, a little bit more than the 1.7 they got in June. So that's good there. Combined total is going to be what, about 8.2 million in total. So it is lower than they had in June, obviously, but that does add to their bottom line nonetheless. Okay, and I think that was it. Okay, here we go. So estimated hash rate growth. As previously disclosed, Riot is in the process of repairing damage incurred in the building G during the severe winter storm in Texas in December 2022. I mean, we're getting close to almost being there a year. That's basically, what is it now? 8 months or so since that happened, and they still haven't fixed that. Obviously, they're possibly waiting on some parts or something like that. That's causing the delays, maybe. And then Riot now anticipates achieving a total self-mining hash rate capacity of 12.5 exahash at its Rockdale facility in the second half of 2023, which we're obviously in right now. So that could be any time between now and the end of December, really. Okay. So just wanted to point that out. And let's take a look at the numbers that I do have for them. So Riot, let's see here. I think for Riot, I think I pulled in everything that I needed to. So Riot has 175 million shares outstanding. Stock price is at $17.81. Market cap is at 3.1 billion right now. They've had actually really good performance here the last 12 weeks for the most part. 12 weeks ago, they're up 73% from there. 8 weeks, they're up 77.9%. 4 weeks ago, they're up 18.7%. And then last week, they were basically flat at 0%. BTC production also has been coming down here as we've been getting into the summer months with them. So it seems like they're curtailing more and more as obviously the heat waves and everything else impacts the electrical grid in Texas. And that's having obviously an impact on them in their production. So it's kind of cyclical, it seems like. We see it here in July and August of last year. They were kind of coming down as well. And they kind of went back up towards the wintertime when they could mine definitely more unless they had really cold winters. Then they curtailed a little bit there. But it seems like the best time for them is going to be during the winters, as it looks like right now. HODL position is, let me see here, 7,275. We talked about that. They sold, based on my numbers, it looks like 385. They said 400. That could be, let's see here, 725. Is that right? Let me see here. Where's it? 7,000. Where's the HODL? 7,275. Yeah, that's what I have them at. 7,275. That's coming up to be 38 Bitcoin sold, it looks like. If I have that information correct, which I think I do. Okay, but there's our BTC production has been coming down. Hopefully, once we get into August, September, and into October, those numbers will start going up as they have to curtail less. Here's the monthly difference for those. BTC HODL has been increasing here ever since last year, which is good to see. Bitcoin efficiency, BTC per exahash, is pretty low, 38.32. They curtailed a lot. This month, BTC sold. I have them at 385. They reported 400. We'll see how those numbers stack up, but that's kind of where I'm getting at. And then they've been pretty much stuck at, kind of like Iris also, since June at 10.7 exahash, and they were at 10.5 prior to that for a couple months. They did order a bunch of miners, obviously, going into the halving event. We'll see how fast they can get those up and running. That should get them up to the 20-some exahash, I believe, which will be nice to see as well. And then here's our revenue for the last 12 months, including last July of 2022. They were at 6.8 million back then. And they're at 12.3 million right now. On that one, hash rate difference, obviously no change there. BTC sold value, how much they basically sold, roughly. Then we got the last 4 quarters revenue, self-mining. You guys can take a look at that. Operating costs as well. We'll cover that when they actually report their quarterly results here, I believe, next week. And yeah, so I actually do have their analyst ratings here, but let's take a look at the numbers here for them, how much they actually curtailed. So in July, based on my numbers, it looks like they curtailed for about, what is that, 14 days, 15 days or so. I have them running at 15.9 days out of the month here. And that's with being everything installed. That got us to the 12.33 billion in revenue, which should be, yeah, 12.334, which is what I have right here, based on the Bitcoin average price in July. Okay, definitely a lot of curtailment there. And based on the numbers here, analysts actually did increase here for them by 1, it looks like. Shares did increase quite nicely here by about 2 million, roughly, almost, I would say almost 3 million. Looks like they're almost at 76.9 million now. 43% is owned by institutions. We still have 3 strong buy ratings, 6 buy ratings. Price target is $24 now, which is a nice increase from the 16 they had. Average is at $17.31 and the low is $13. I have them right now kind of overvalued based on their last 12 months of operation or last 4 quarters. So this includes the current quarter that we're in, which is Q3 numbers. Those are estimates along with the Q2 numbers, which are estimate, and then we have the Q1 and Q4 numbers, which are actual numbers for them. Based on that, I have them between $9.41 and $17.81. That's definitely kind of like on the average side of things where analysts are looking at them. And then also, if we look at them, but this doesn't also include the energy credits they get or revenue they might get from the energy side of things. This is strictly looking at Bitcoin. So you can always add that into it, whatever they're getting on average for the energy credits as well. If we look at the futures for the next 12 months, before the halving, 8 months, and then 4 months after the halving at half of the revenue, with the current month, I have them at $7.05 to $10.57. If we add in there the 8.2 million roughly, that's what number we get then if we add that in there as well. So we'll do this pretty quickly here. We'll try to do this. Let me see, multiplying that by the halving. Hopefully this doesn't screw things up, but we'll try it. Okay, 8,200,000. It's gonna probably multiply first, then yeah, that's not gonna work. Let's see here. So let's just do this. We'll change this just for the time being. So 8.2, that would get us to 20,500,000, and then we'll change it back 20,500,000. And then let's see what we get here. So then we get still a stock price of $11.71 to $17.56. They're at $17.81 right now, which would be kind of fairly valued right now if their numbers were that way. Now, given that they could curtail less going forward, those numbers could definitely improve for them. And obviously the stock can go up a lot higher than that. And if we're looking forward to Bitcoin price possibly going up as well into the halving event, that's obviously going to help drive revenue, which would then also improve their future outlook as well. Okay, but that's kind of where we're at. Otherwise, if we change that back to what it was, there we go. We're looking at these numbers here. Okay, so you got to take into a lot of things that go into this as well. Okay, so that's it for Riot. Like I said, they curtailed a lot. Would love to see them curtail a little bit less, but given where they are located at in Texas, I think that's kind of the monster in the room, unfortunately. Okay, so that's it for that one. And let's take a look at what's the next one? Marathon. So Marathon Digital Holdings announces Bitcoin production and mining operation updates for July 2023. Here's a quote from Fred Thiel. We mined 179 blocks in July, whereas we mined 144 blocks last month and 171 blocks in May when high transaction fees boosted our reported Bitcoin production. So they definitely mined more blocks, which is nice to see. Their hash rate also grew a little bit there. We also saw continued progress at our joint venture in Abu Dhabi, which began hashing in early July and produced 16.8 Bitcoin in its first month. Given our 20% ownership stake, our share was 3.4 Bitcoin for the month of July. As of July 31st, the JV's operational hash rate grew to 1.2 exahash, and we continue to expect the project's full 7 exahash to be online before the year end of 2023. So they will get that. That will not be reported as revenue on their balance sheet. It will be reported as assets, I believe. I think that's the way that they have to do it because they don't have 50% or more ownership in that joint venture. Okay, here are the numbers that we do have for them. BTC produced was 1,176. Operational energized hash rate was at 18.8, so they definitely increased that as well. And that's basically about it. You guys can look at some of the other stuff here, excuse me. Let's get into Marathon really quick on my spreadsheet, and we'll take a look at what's going on with the markets as well, and we'll call it a day. So Marathon, here's Marathon. Okay, Marathon right now, if we scroll over, there we go. 167 million shares outstanding. Market cap is at 2.7 billion right now. Stock has performed really well here in the last 12 weeks. It's up 87% from 12 weeks ago, up 78% from 8 weeks ago. It's up only 6.6% from 4 weeks ago, and down actually 1.07% from last week, or last week it was down. Okay, BTC production, obviously May helped out tremendously with the net transaction fees from the network on Bitcoin. They generated 1,245 Bitcoins. June, they actually curtailed quite a bit. They only had 979, and then right back up to over 1,000 now to 1,176, which is nice to see as well. Their HODL position is right now at 12,964. So they sold about 750 other Bitcoins here, it looks like, out of that bunch. You can see their monthly difference here as far as BTC production is concerned. The HODL position has continued to grow. They sold quite a bit here in January, and then they've been adding to that stack ever since then, it looks like. BTC per exahash efficiency is at 62.55, so a little bit better than Riot is, but they still curtailed a little bit there. BTC sold, you can see that they've been selling on average between 700 and 750 in the last 6 months or so here. They sold quite a bit in January to kind of, I guess, get some cash infusion. And other than that, they've been selling around 700, 750, somewhere around, right around there for average. Okay. Hash rate growth, nice continued growth here ever since the beginning of the year. They were at 7.3 exahash in January, and they're now at 18.8 exahash, so fantastic growth there. Revenue also is the most revenue that they've possibly generated based on the Bitcoin price, average Bitcoin price for July, about 35.38 million. This, I would think, would make them now profitable on their balance sheet. Or at least, I would think for at least, I wouldn't even be surprised if they're not profitable for the Q2 quarter right now, based on how much they've actually brought in. But we'll take a look at the numbers when we do get them from them next week. Hash rate difference, so they installed about 1.1 exahash here in July, which is nice to see. And BTC sold value, how much they've been selling roughly, last 4 quarters. We'll look at that when they provide the quarterly results, everything else here. Based on that, institutions did increase here quite nicely to 333. Shares also went up to 61.5 million, and percent owned by institutions went up to 36.22%. We still have 1 strong buy rating, 2 buy ratings, 3 hold ratings, and a price target now of $21, slight increase from the 20 that they had the month prior. And the average went up to 14.47, and the low still stayed at 8. Now, when we look at their actual numbers here, as far as what they did in July, we can see that they curtailed for about 4.5 days, 4 days, something like that. And then new miners were installed running for only 20 days. They got us to the 35.38 million in revenue. So not as much curtailment happening with them as we've seen with Riot, obviously. And we saw a little bit of curtailment here as well in June, where they curtailed about, what was that, 5.5 days, 4.5 days, something like that, curtailed there. So they are on average curtailing about 4 to 5 days, something like that, it seems like. But definitely not to the point where Riot is. Riot is almost, well, a lot more, obviously. So it's kind of interesting because they do have a lot of miners that are installed in Texas. So wondering why they don't have to curtail as much as maybe Riot does. Just a question that I have. Okay, and it might be with the agreements that they have in place, but we'll see. Okay, and then you can see here in April they curtailed quite a bit. 21 days only mined in April as well. So it is curtailing quite a bit. Okay, based on all those numbers, if we look at the current quarter that we're in, the past 3 quarters, combine those numbers together, we get a total of 266 million in revenue, 50% net income from gross revenue. We're looking at 133 million, PE of 20. We're looking at $15.89. They're at $16.56 right now. And then if we look at 75% net income, we're looking at $23.84. So they're kind of in between there. They could probably be valued a little bit higher. That's kind of my range for them right now. And then if we look at the future revenue possible based on the 8 months before the halving event and then 4 months after with revenue cut in half, if they just stay the same thing, stay the same with production, Bitcoin stays at the same price, everything's like that. We're looking at then at $21.14 to $31.70, which is kind of in line with the analyst estimates of $21 for them on the lower end. I'm going up a little bit higher than the analysts do, though. Okay, so based on this, I would say that they're undervalued based on future revenue potential. Based on current past tense looking revenue, they would be fairly valued to slightly, let's say maybe slightly undervalued to where they should be really. But it all depends on the numbers that we see at the quarterly results here coming up next week. Okay, so that is it for Marathon, Riot, and Iris Energy. They're still going to be growing quite a bit here, a little bit more towards the end of the year, which was going to be nice to see for Marathon especially. Same thing for Riot. Iris is supposed to be growing as well. So we'll see where all these guys end up at, but it's nice to see that we have a lot of miners being installed. Okay, so let me know what you guys think of all these guys down in the comments below. Love chatting with you guys there. And let's take a look at what happened in the stock market today with the market indices and the miners as well, as well as Bitcoin. And then, as always, the spreadsheet is going to be available with my Patreon members there. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at Bitcoin and the market. So S&P was actually down today 0.26%. Dow Jones was down 1.9%. And NASDAQ was down 0.1%. I just saw before I started recording this that Amazon beat the EPS by like 80-some%, which was just wild. So that stock is off and running into the after hours, or at least it was. So that was, maybe we'll have a good day tomorrow. We'll see. Tomorrow's Friday, right? So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But Bitcoin was actually up today a little bit here. It was up just 0.03% on the day. It did go to our 50-day moving average. It dropped back down below it. It went down to our low here, which seems to be right around like the 28,900. So it's bounced off of that before here the day before. We'll see if that's going to continue to hold or if we're actually going to go down to our supported 28,600 on that one. And then looking at the 4-hour chart here, price is pretty much flat. RSI, however, has been going up here. It leads me to think that we might be coming back down a little bit more. Let's take a look at the 1-hour chart as well on that one. See if we can get the RSI. Yeah, price has been kind of flat. RSI has been kind of going up a little bit as well. So indication is, to me at least, that we might be coming down a little bit on that one. Ethereum, let's take a look at that one as well really quick here. That one was actually down today. It was down 0.25% on the day. It closed at 1,834. It's up slightly right now. And we can see here that the RSI on the daily actually has been coming down as well as the price on the 4 hours. Let's take a look at that one. Let's see if we can go far enough back to where the price is right now. Price is back here. We were back here. RSI is actually kind of up, and the price has been kind of flat from that point, leading me to believe we might be coming down, okay? Now, the miners had another rough day today. It's a continuation from what they had this past week, it seems like. Any was down 4.89%. Argo was down 4.35%. Bit Digital was down 4.83%. It's now below the 20-day moving average. BitDeer was down 2.74%. It's hovering right at that 50-day moving average line. Bitfarms was down 4.65%. Cypher was down 4.02%. CleanSpark was down 1.96%. Core Scientific was down 3.55%. DigiHost was down 1.67%. DMG was down 2.12%. Greenidge was actually up today, 8.65%. It's now at the 20-day moving average line. Hive was down 2.61%. Hut was down 0.06%. 0.6%, sorry. Iris Energy was down 5.91%. Marathon was down, actually up today, 0.49%. Mawson was up 2.04%. Riot was down 0.89%. Solana was down 9.62%. Stronghold was down 3.33%. Wolf was down 4.21%. And on Stronghold, I do have all the data for them for the last 4 quarters. The only thing that I'm missing for them is the quarterly Bitcoin mined for the self-mining part of things. I reached out on Twitter to see if anybody has that data. I looked through their quarterly results. I couldn't find that data. They just provide the numbers as far as revenue. I got to see if I can look through other press releases, things like that. Maybe I can find something in there. But that's the only thing that's giving me trouble right now, and it's making it hard to figure out what their actual cost per Bitcoin is right now. Okay, so we'll talk about that one tomorrow along with Hive and TerraWolf. We'll get into those guys, and then we'll see who else provides numbers tomorrow as well. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out tremendously, and I'm getting ready to sneeze here. But hopefully I don't sneeze. Okay. Like I said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. So we'll see what happens on Friday. All right. Have a great night, everybody. See you. Bye.